With a cantilever from the hillside out in the middle of the meadow. One of the ideas of the house was to use technologies that had come out of the war. So all the parts of this house were off the shelf.
But the bridge house was never built.
After World War II, there were major material shortages. And it took about 2 or 3 years to even get the parts that they had ordered. And in that time, Charles and Ray fell in love with this meadow.
That all that time here, you gotta take a big string of the better house here, and put it here.
Oh, we're making the classic architect's mistake. You find a beautiful site and you plug a house in the middle of it.
With the meadow in mind, Charles and Ray redesigned the bridge house and began construction.
It was relatively quick because they were relying on some form of prefabrication, bringing materials to the site and assembling them.
On Christmas Eve, 1949, Charles and Ray moved in.
Eames House in Los Angeles on that bluff overlooking the Pacific Ocean is truly one of the great buildings in town.
Known to architectural historians in the case study house number 8 is the archetypal modern house, or at least started.
The old house as it was first made is very different from what it became. As they lived in it through the years, it acquired all their little touches. I think people miss that if you've really been there and been inside.
Yeah, you remember this?
I do. I don't remember this one here, but there was at least one of the offices.
Modern design has this cliche of seeing the super buildings, very hard edge things. You can't have, your Pepperidge Farm cookies on the kitchen counter because that's going to ruin, this perfect tableau, this perfect life that you live. But you would never look at the Eames house and think that. The container for your life is simple, but that doesn't mean your life.
What was in the house was a combination of things that one hadn't seen before. There was a tumbleweed hanging from the ceiling. Well, now you can see a lot of tumbleweed around in people's houses, but in those days it was, And near the tumbleweed hanging from the ceiling, there were 2 uncommon paintings suspended from the deck of the roof. The floor was just another canvas for Ray, the ceiling was just another canvas, the sofa was a canvas for a collage of objects.
She would have entirely all of her famous blue and white dishes stacked up. She would have little red hearts or little red accents. It was all perfect.
I went to dinner at Ray and Charles' house, and it came to dessert. So what they had arranged for dessert was 3 bowls of flowers that they put in front of you to admire. So it was a visual dessert. I was very fucked up. I can tell you. I was really, because I hadn't eaten much, I was standing up to dinner. So I'm looking at these stupid flowers. I say, what the hell is wrong with these people? I got my government from lunch and you're still a queen.
Pleasures, Charles. That's exactly what they did.
Every time the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus would come to town, we would all get out our cameras and our Extracam, and we'd go running downtown and we'd photograph the circus.
And he said, photograph. What? He said, anything you want, just photograph. And a couple of people in the audience were there to feed you. It's like,
machine gun, somebody was feeding you cartridges, and I took a lot of it.
What impressed him was how everybody knew their place. And sometimes they had 2 or 3 different tasks that they had to do.
The circus looks like a free-for-all, as absolutely a model of constraint.
And for Charles, this was one supreme example, the performance. Never let the blood show, he would say. And this went back to his philosophy of no good design, no good performance without restrictions, without restraints, without rules.
He goes to the circus and he just is overwhelmed by the richness of everything, you know, the costumes and the wagons and the tents, and he comes back and he's trying to, you can't turn a circus into a piece of furniture, but he's desperately wanting to.
Charles and Ray did not turn the circus into a chair, but they did turn the Eames office into a circus.
He wasn't embarrassed at all about what it is that he was doing. You know, he felt really confident about, yeah, this is a toy shop. I'm just having fun here. And you know, somehow or other you guys bring me money and tell me to go ahead, and I'm going to.
Royalties from Herman Miller gave Charles the freedom to move beyond his reputation as a designer of modern furniture.
Herman Miller was always after him to do more chairs, and he would do chairs every now and then. But I don't think he liked to think of himself or have others think of him as the chair designer. I was comforted, and that gave me an excuse to go down to 901. I fell in love with the whole concept of 901, which is a kind of Renaissance art workshop, where they did everything. At the time, he was considered a kind of cutesy, passe little filmmaker, but no one had ever written about the film.
These films are their own genre. The product out of a film studio concerned with profits, but of a curious mind yearning to communicate the complex beauty of everyday objects.
We've never used film as an art form. We just want to show it art as a tool.
They were, at heart, a kind of mixture of vanity and self-expression. They only had one obligation, and that was to satisfy Charles.
Much of our energy is like the guy in vaudeville that has the plates going, and he's intent on getting 30 plates spinning at one time. But part of the process is quickly being aware of the ones that are winding down and keeping them steady.
One of the titles that began to circulate with all the employees was the Eamery, because it was like this place where everyone was driven to work all the time.
It was 24/7, 365. Going to the Eames office and watching people at their desk was like watching people take their brains out and knead them like dough. People that came from the outside couldn't believe that this is the way things were done. But it was a delicious agony. It was like a temple for me.
Many of us understood very well that we were very poorly suited for employment in certain kinds of jobs. We were very well suited to be there.